Ever wondered why mastering a new language feels like an uphill battle? From suffering with unfamiliar vocabulary to navigating through difficult grammar structures and tongue-twisting through pronunciation. Do you seek for a way to make the path to fluency a smoother one? If so, let me tell you that you've landed to the right place. In today's video, we'll summarize all the key tricks revealed in this great book of Fluent Forever by Gabriel Weiner, who makes learning a language less of a fight than a game. It becomes fun to use his tips, the same tips that allowed him to learn German in 14 weeks. 1. Images and personal connections make remembering easier for the brain. Have you ever experienced the frustration of learning a new word in a foreign language, only to find it slipping from memory moments later? Fortunately, there are effective techniques to help these new words stick, and one such method involves establishing connections within the brain. Creating connections plays a crucial role in retention, but not all connections are equally effective. Linking a word to a personal experience proves to be the most impactful, as it activates multiple areas throughout the brain. The brain processes words across 4 distinct levels: structure, sound, concept, and personal connection. In a psychology experiment conducted in the 1970s, students were presented with questions corresponding to these levels. For instance, they were asked about the structure of words, their rhyming sounds, and their conceptual meanings. Subsequently, an unexpected memory test revealed that students were 6 times more likely to recall words associated with personal connections, such as inquiries about their preferences, compared to questions about word structure. For example, if you aim to learn the Spanish word for cat, gato, forming a connection to a memory involving a cat increases your likelihood of retention by 50%. Visual memory also proves to be a potent tool in language retention. In a 1960 memory experiment, college students were shown a large number of magazine ads, followed by a new set of images. Remarkably, they were able to identify the original images with 98.5% accuracy. This underscores the effectiveness of anchoring words to images, even if the images are unrelated. Next time you encounter someone named Edward, drawing inspiration from the famous Johnny Depp movie, envisioning him with scissors for hands can aid in remembering his name through visual cues. 2. When it comes to memory, recalling is better than reviewing. We're all too familiar with the dreaded feeling of cramming for exams. We pore over the material until our minds feel on the verge of overload, hoping for success. But how much of that information do we retain after a week? A month? A year? The reality is that our memory isn't as reliable as we might assume, and simply increasing repetition isn't the most effective strategy. Consider the work of German psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus in the 19th century. He spent years memorizing lists of meaningless syllables like niche, meep, and geek. By comparing the time taken to learn a list with the time needed to relearn it later, he discovered the forgetting curve. His findings revealed that we can recall about 30% of information after 24 hours, but this dwindles to only around 10% a year later. But what about the common practice of repeated studying? This technique, known as overlearning, has been shown to be largely ineffective for long-term memory retention. So what's the solution? Enter the power of recall. When we actively retrieve information from memory, it signals to our brain that this information is worth remembering. In a study, participants were offered $20 for every Spanish word from a list they could remember a week later. They had the option to either study the list for 10 minutes or exchange the list after 5 minutes for a piece of paper and a pencil. Those who chose to recall the words and write them down remembered approximately 35% more than those who simply studied. By engaging in active recall, they significantly improved their memory retention. Furthermore, neuroscience has revealed that each time we recall a memory, our brain experiences a small release of dopamine, the feel-good hormone. This not only boosts our mood but also facilitates additional memory storage, reinforcing the importance of active recall in learning and memory formation. 3. Spaced repetition systems, SRS, make memorization more effective. Our long-term memory often falls short of our expectations, but there's a solution: strategic timing. Timing plays a crucial role when learning a new language. Surprisingly, the more challenging a word is to remember initially, the better it tends to stick in your long-term memory. Consider this scenario. You study a list of words until you comprehend them all. Then, a week later, you attempt to recall as many as possible. Studies indicate that after 1 week, you're 20% more likely to remember words that took longer to recall initially, and a whopping 75% more likely to recall those that were particularly challenging. Additionally, there's a third category: words that were on the tip of your tongue just before recall. Remarkably, you're about twice as likely to remember these words 1 week later. The key, then, lies in recalling a word just before you're about to forget it. Enter the spaced repetition system, which leverages this insight to enhance long-term memory. This system employs flashcards at varying intervals, instructing you on which words to review and precisely when. Research in memory has revealed that 1 month is the optimal interval for recalling a word to ensure long-term retention. Most spaced repetition systems adopt this interval, prompting you to review a word today and then reminding you of it in 1 month, just before you're likely to forget it. This method proves highly effective and can be applied not only to words but also to grammatical concepts. In a mere 4 months, for instance, you could memorize 3,600 flashcards with an accuracy rate of around 90 to 95%. 4. Learning the sounds and pronunciation of the language is key. Why do children seem to effortlessly acquire new language skills while adults find it more challenging? The key lies in their approach to learning. Unlike adults, children learn languages primarily through immersion and listening rather than formal study. By actively listening to a language, children not only acquire vocabulary but also grasp grammar intuitively. This method of learning is not only more effective but also more enjoyable than traditional grammar-focused approaches. Starting with sound is crucial. Familiarizing oneself with the pronunciation of new words significantly aids retention. A notable experiment conducted by researchers at Stanford University and Carnegie Mellon illustrates this point. Japanese adults, known for struggling with distinguishing between the L and R sounds in English due to their language's phonetic structure, participated in a task where they had to differentiate between words like lock and rock. Predictably, they performed poorly initially. However, the experiment revealed a remarkable finding. After receiving immediate feedback indicating whether their response was correct or incorrect, participants quickly learned to discern the difference in sounds after just 3 20-minute sessions. Learning a language's sounds first offers another advantage. It accelerates the acquisition of grammar. This was validated by the classic WUG test, where children are shown a drawing of a creature called a wug, and then presented with 2 of them, prompted with the question, "Now there are 2. There are 2. By around the age of 5, children grasp that English forms plurals by adding s to nouns, correctly responding with wugs. This experiment underscores the importance of understanding sound patterns in language acquisition. Without a foundation in phonetics, learners would struggle to grasp grammatical structures effectively. 5. Word games help build vocabulary. Learning sounds indeed facilitates memorization, but the challenge lies in effectively using words while ensuring they remain in memory. The solution? Engaging in word games. One such game is Spot the Difference, easily played using Google Images. Simply input any word, and you'll be presented with a plethora of images illustrating various facets and nuances of the word's meaning. For instance, searching for the German word Schrank reveals its multiple meanings, such as cupboard, cabinet, or closet. By discerning these nuances, the word becomes easier to grasp. The objective is to identify differences between your expectations and the images displayed on the screen. Moreover, Google Images provides captions in 130 languages. Utilize the basic version, making it an invaluable resource for language learners. Since the images are sourced from websites in the target language, learners can observe how words are used in diverse contexts. Another beneficial activity is the memory game, which imbues new words with personal significance. Here's how it works. Select a word you wish to learn and personalize it. For example, if you're learning the French word for grandmother, grandmère, evoke memories of summers spent at your grandmother's home during childhood. Even if a direct connection cannot be established, the act of seeking one fosters word retention. even if the connection ends up being as simple as, "That tricky word I struggle to remember." 6. Languages should be learned in the order children learn them. Imagine having a device in your mind capable of translating sounds and other inputs into language. Well, such a device exists, and it's known as the language machine. However, it follows a specific sequence of operations. Each language follows a distinct developmental order. It might seem logical that learners of English from various language backgrounds would acquire it differently. Surprisingly, they undergo the same developmental stages as native speakers, revealing the pattern by which the human brain learns English. Consider English verb tenses. Children typically learn the ing form of verbs before incorporating the verb, to be. Hence, they might say, "he running," before, "he is running." They also tend to learn irregular past forms before regular ones, e.g., sang, before, jumped. Only after mastering these do they progress to using the present third person, e.g., "he likes ice cream." However, overloading our brains with excessive information can hinder this language learning process. Many learners begin with material that's too advanced. To effectively grasp grammar, it's essential to provide our brains with comprehensible input, information it can understand. For instance, when offering a toddler a cookie and asking, "Do you want a cookie?" they comprehend, even if they're unfamiliar with the word, cookie. Therefore, a beneficial approach is to start with the simplest sentences from your grammar book. This allows you to consciously learn grammar rules while providing your brain with comprehensible input. 7. Simple stories make grammar patterns easier. Learning the various forms of nouns, verbs, adjectives, and other words in a language can be quite daunting due to complex patterns of word endings and numerous exceptions. However, there's a more enjoyable and effective way to tackle this challenge than endlessly studying lists of endings. Instead, try creating simple stories for each form of the word you wish to learn. For instance, let's consider learning the forms of the English verb, to be. While traditional grammar books provide examples like, "I am a student," "he is a student," etc., crafting your own examples is more beneficial, especially with irregular verbs. But how do you create these examples? Enter the person-action-object (POW) story technique, a method so potent that memory champions often rely on it to memorize patterns. Take German, for instance, where every noun has a masculine, feminine, or neuter form, der, die, or das, respectively, along with various plural forms. Rather than attempting to memorize the gender and plural for each noun through rote repetition, assign an action to each gender and an object to each plural form. For example, associate the action, throw, with the masculine form, der, and the object, chair, with the plural formed by adding an e to the noun. So, when learning der Hund, the dog, in German, which is masculine and has this plural form, the mental image or story could be, dog throws chair. Such associations are more likely to stick in your memory than isolated words or tenses. 8. Learn languages faster by avoiding translations. When learning a new language, the instinct to translate every word into your native language is common. However, letting go of this crutch is crucial for accelerating your progress. One effective approach is to utilize monolingual dictionaries, which define words using the same language you're learning. Incorporating these early on in your language journey helps expand your vocabulary rapidly. As you grasp the definitions in the target language, you not only acquire the searched word but also encounter new terms used to explain it. Should you encounter unfamiliar words, look those up as well. This process enhances your understanding of grammar and increases your vocabulary with each definition you explore. Breaking away from constant translation also facilitates quicker fluency. In language acquisition, correct grammar and vocabulary are only part of the equation. Achieving natural fluency requires an understanding of how native speakers commonly express themselves. Sometimes, even if your phrasing is grammatically correct, it may not align with natural speech patterns in the language. To truly master a language, honing your listening skills is imperative. This entails avoiding reliance on translations. For instance, when watching a movie in your target language, consider turning off subtitles. While you may not grasp every detail initially, Exposure to the language and context broadens your understanding over time. This not only enriches your vocabulary but also deepens your comprehension of language usage. Another effective method is to read a book while simultaneously listening to its audiobook counterpart. This approach helps internalize the rhythm and flow of the language, contributing to overall language proficiency. Before we end this video, let me tell you can become fluent in a new language faster than you thought possible by using a spaced repetition system, connecting words to images, personalizing new words and sentences, and listening carefully for rhythm and sounds. Watch again the video, write down the steps and start applying them, then tell us in the comment how it goes. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Watch our other videos, till seeing you again in the next video.